We're standing at the trailhead of the Haywire Grade. We're just outside of Manistee, and we're here for a little bit of an update today on what's going on with the trail. A lot of changes taking place, Jerry, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about it.
Well, this trailhead, Intake Park Trailhead, was a partnership with the City of Manistee and the local grant-sponsored trail management organization. And there have been a number of layers of improvements to the trailhead here over the last about 3 years. We're currently reconstructing the grade over a period of years, getting ready for the 50th anniversary celebration of the first Rails to Trails in the state of Michigan. That celebration is coming up in 2020, and there's going to be 4 events over the course of that year to include a snowmobile event, an equine event, a bicycle event, and an ORV event in their respective seasons. And we're out here today, it's the fall, so it is still currently the ORV season, and the Trail Association is already starting to prepare and plan for winter operations on Haywire Grade.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit. You know, you were mentioning earlier about the park that you have here. Now, this is our trailhead, so we've got a lot of parking here, but they got it fixed up pretty nice, and they're doing some work on it.
Absolutely. The last level of infrastructure improvements that we did at this park were curbing, handicap access, picnic tables, barbecues, trash receptacles, and hopefully we're projecting that the next layer of improvements will include the proper signage as well as lighting and possibly restrooms.
Okay, what are the changes that are going to be taking place over the next 4 years?
Right now, our focus, since the trailhead is at a certain level, is that we have a second trailhead midway up the grade at Jack Pine Lodge, which is about 17 miles north of here. But our focus right now is to get the grade itself in the best possible condition we can for the 50th anniversary celebration. Remember that if you travel up the grade here from Manistee to Shingleton, which is about 34 miles of old railroad grade, there is approximately 17 bridges that you have to cross, and it's really a beautiful scenic trail.
You were mentioning about the history of it and how it got its name, and I thought that was a good story.
Well, the story of Haywire Grade, or the name of Haywire Grade, came about because back in the day when the railroad operated in this corridor, they were rather poor. And they were always in need of money and materials to maintain the grade. So they didn't have enough money for the blockage that went under the rails. So what they used to do is they used to go out in the farmers' fields and collect all their leftover hay, and they would get baling wire and fence wire and wrap it up real tight, and they would use them in place of the timbers that went under the rails, and that's how the grade got its local name, Haywire Grade.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You hear all these names of different things up here, and you wonder sometimes where the names come from, and there's a good example. Now, coming up, you've got a lot of improvements on the trail, but it takes people to do this.
Absolutely. The local trail association here merged where there used to be 2 trail organizations. There was an ORV grant sponsor and a snowmobile grant sponsor. And a number of years ago, those 2 organizations merged into one new trail management organization that managed the grade in all seasons for all uses. They became the first multi-use trail manager in the state of Michigan at that time. Haywire Grade has a long history besides its railroad history. It was the first rail trail in the state of Michigan, and at one time it was also part of the longest railroad car ferry line in the United States.
Car ferry line?
Yeah, the car ferry, there used to be a car ferry that went from Frankfort, Michigan in the lower peninsula to Manistee in the upper peninsula. And on the south end, the Ann Arbor Railroad went from Ann Arbor to Frankfort. Then you had the car ferry that connected to Manistee. And then you had the Manistee Lake Superior line that went from Manistee to Shingleton.
Okay. Trail's looking great. One of the things I like about this particular spot, we're right next to the river, and it's just beautiful coming down here to the park just to look at, even without going out on the trail. But a lot of things are going to be changing on the trail. Tell us about some of those.
Well, the things that are going to be changing that are on the trail is grading improvements. There's been a lot of mechanized brushing to have a visual corridor, but we're also working on 2 infrastructure projects right now that hopefully will be in place by 2020. The first infrastructure project involves signing the grade with the old historic railroad logo, the Manistee Lake Superior Line logo, with mile markers. So instead of saying, I'm somewhere south of Steuben, because it's somewhat remote, you could say, I'm at mile marker 17. And it also provides a layer of safety, because if there was an accident, public safety folks would be able to access and go right to the location of an accident. The second piece of infrastructure that we're currently working on with Hiawatha National Forest and the DNR is the development of an information system, a kiosk system, that hopefully will be located where the old 12 railroad stations used to be, and they will have the information on the history of the railroad, the history of the railroad stops or railroad camps, and also the logging camps that those railroad stations used to service.
Well, you get a little bit of history as you go along too.
Exactly. It'll make the grade historically interesting for those folks that are interested in a historic corridor.
Okay, and you mentioned kiosks along the way. We have one here right now. You can come over here and get information. As you can see it down here, you've got maps up here too. Also getting here, how do people find it?
The easiest way to get here is if you're on US 2 coming from south to north, you would go through the city of Manistee on M94, and at the blinker light on the northwest end of town, you head north, and as you cross the Indian River, there's signage right out on M94 to direct you to the trailhead here. If you continue up M94 another 17 miles, you'll wind up at a location called Jack Pine Lodge and Resort, and it also has a trailhead. So there's actually 2 trailheads now that service Haywire Grade.